Welcome to the Be What You Want podcast. My name's Chris Hall, and today I have the pleasure of interviewing Keaton Simons. Keaton Simons is a rock and roll bluesy musician based out of LA and a dear friend of mine. And today we're going to connect with what it means to be a musician in the modern environment, and also what it means to really express yourself and be in alignment with your passion and pursue your goals like this. Now, Keaton has had the pleasure of working with many iconic names, including Snoop Dogg, Gnarls Barkley, and Chris Cornell, amongst many others. So today I want to go and make it a bit more personal and hear about some of the breakthroughs and challenges that Keaton's had and what it means for him in his life and also within his music. So I'd love to welcome Keaton Simons to the podcast. Welcome.
Hello, how you doing, Chris? It's great to see your face, my man.
Great to see your lovely face as always, my friend. Now, Keaton, I would like to start this one a bit differently since you've got your guitar in front of you.
Sure.
I understand that you've got your latest EP, 1, 2, 3, Go, has just been recorded and released. It's a very cool EP, by the way, and it was recorded in Nashville. Right. Tell us a little bit about it, because I know that you've always had a passion to do a destination recording.
Exactly. I've been wanting to make a record outside of LA for a long time. I've always been mystified by the stories of people who, go to some place in Greece and it's this beautiful thing and they're on the water and whatever it might be. And to me, the idea came up to work with a dear friend of mine named Marshall Altman, who is an incredible producer and writer. And he's in Nashville. I've got a ton of friends there. The music scene there is incredible. And I was like, let's make a record in Nashville.
Hell yeah, that sounds fantastic. Good on you, man. Well, listen, how about you give us a little teaser from 1, 2, 3, Go? I'd love to hear it.
This is a single. It's called 1, 2, 3, Go. You ready?
Go for it, man.
Here we go. When I walk these streets, I feel a certain passion. When you're there with me, we start a chain reaction and all again. All again. I'm off my feet, I'm swept away, I'm stranded. Got my heart tethered, disbelief, abandoned the hard way. I learned that hard. You built a castle out of sticks and bones. Here we go. When I get back home, it's back to life. 1, 2, 3, go. After the months of sacrifice, where did they go? Take time to stop and feel alive. What do you know? I know a feeling when it's right. 1, 2, 3, go. Out here alone, remembering independence. We're gonna bring it all back home and feel that confidence. I love that confidence. Thinking in circles keeps my mind well-rounded. Searching for subjects just to stay confounded and trying things. I'm always trying. You built a castle out of sticks and bones. Here we go. When I get back home, it's back to life. 1, 2, 3, go. After the months of sacrifice, where did they go? Take time to stop and feel alive. What do we know? I know a feeling when it's right. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh, oh. 1, 2, 3, go. Then we finally get to start again. And then we finally get to start. Here we go. When I get back home, it's back to life. 1, 2, 3, go. After the months of sacrifice, where did they go? Take time to stop and feel alive. What do we know? I know a feeling when it's right. 1, 2, 3, go. When I get back home, it's back to life. 1, 2, 3, go. After the months of sacrifice, where did they go? Take time to stop and feel alive. life. What do we go? Do I know I'm feeling with right? What do we go? What do we go? Where do we go? Oh, oh, where do we go? What do we go?
Oh, yes, I am clapping. I don't want to clap too loud just in case I like blow up the microphone on this end. But dude, that was awesome.
Thank you, man. And it sounded good?
It sounds amazing. And guys, I can't encourage you enough to go and check out the EP online, buy it on YouTube, buy it on iTunes, or indeed via KeatonSimons.com. It just sounds incredible. And look, it's got that real ongoing rhythm and beat to it that just keeps you clapping in your mind, in your heart, and it's just fantastic, mate. So, congratulations. What a track.
Kids seem to like it, and that makes me so happy. I've had a lot of parents, friends of mine who have kids who've been like, did you know that kids were going to love that song so much? And I did not know. I didn't know anything except that I was writing a song. But I am so thrilled because that's super fun. You've seen at your very wedding, I was walking around with a guitar serenading everybody, adults and kids alike.
That is literally true. And again, for the viewers to know, Keaton and I are friends, and he was literally at our wedding and played and entertained all of our cousins and little kiddies and all that stuff. And it was amazing. Now, let's go back to your childhood, man. Yeah. So how old were you when you picked up a guitar, and what did it feel like when you did for the first time?
The very first time I picked up a guitar, it was a little too early. I was about 7 years old, and I was trying to play on a steel string acoustic guitar, and it was too much for my fingers, and it was kind of discouraging because it hurt. And I was like, I don't know about this. I'd already been playing piano since I was little and tiny, and anything else you put in front of me, but I really wanted to play guitar, but I was discouraged for a little while, and then I reconnected with the guitar at age 12. I have an old nylon string Martin from 1953 that was my great-grandfather's. He then passed it on to my mom, and I've had it ever since about 12 years old when I started playing guitar on that guitar. And it was nice, soft nylon strings, felt really good. One of my best friends in the world, Jesse Krakow, who to this day is one of the most amazing musicians on earth, taught me how to play Blackbird. And I was like, oh, and that was it, 12. By the time I was 14, I was like, this is all I want to do.
That's it, isn't it? It's those little golden moments. I mean, to relate with that, my mate Matt came round again when I was 12, and he brought his electric Fender and this tiny little 6-inch amplifier, and it was so wonderfully dirty and distorted. And we played Nirvana. We played like three-note bar chords in the bottom, and Smells Like Teen Spirit, and we thought it was the best thing ever. And then we all just began to immediately think that we were going to be rock stars. Of course, because that's what every single teenager does. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a star, and you love it. That's awesome. And what a family history, too, to have that passing down from your grandfather. Oh, yeah. That's really cool.
So cool.
Okay, so like you started on other instruments, right? Because I mean, I've seen you; you're all over it.
I play a lot of different instruments, but guitar's been my primary for a long time. That's the instrument that I really have studied and practiced and spent the most time physically hands-on practicing. I do a lot of mental visualization practice, and it's funny because it wasn't something that I started doing intentionally. I've been doing it since early childhood. And it's just the way that I would daydream about envisioning the piano and playing the piano. And so a lot of my practice on piano, the only reason I improve on the piano is because I find myself daydreaming about it all the time.
Right. So you're literally visualizing the notes you're going to play.
Exactly. And so my brain, so all I need to do then is complete the dexterity part, the muscle part, you know what I mean? But my brain doesn't know the difference between me imagining playing it and me actually playing it.
That's really cool. So like my parents were classical musicians, and I was brought up in that classical environment. And when I hear, for example, a certain symphony, for example, I can hear in my head quite clearly the whole orchestra about 8 bars ahead. And it's like there's no distinction between what's going on in my mind and the anticipation of the next note and it coming in, right?
Exactly. Well, then we get into talking about time and all that. Have you gotten into biocentrism at all?
Ooh, what's that? No, tell me, what's
Oh man,
biocentrism?
it's some cool stuff. Um, Biocentrism is just basically a theory which says that consciousness co-creates the universe essentially, and so
Okay.
you know
Oh, actually,
it.
wait a minute. I think I do know about this. Is it Dr. Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief? Have you heard of him?
That's one. I have not heard of that one. This one is Robert Lanza.
Uh-huh.
And there's a couple books. One's called Biocentrism and one's called Beyond Biocentrism. I just finished, and they are incredible, so fascinating, man. It's just really, it kind of, because I've been fascinated and puzzled by quantum mechanics since I was a kid, and I find it to be wonderful, fruitful, crazy thing to pursue. You know what I mean? And this idea kind of fills in a lot of those gaps. It kind of it offers an explanation for quantum uncertainty.
What is the idea? Like for people that haven't heard of it, like give me the
It's
headline.
okay. Have you heard of the two slit experiment, the double slit?
Yes, I have. Yeah.
So that's one of the kind of foundations, is saying that whether or not a quantum event is observed determines basically whether it remains a wave function, which keeps it in superposition where it is in all places at once. But it has to collapse the waveform and become a particle once it's observed at all. And in fact, even if it's going to eventually be observed, there are experiments done with two quantum entangled particles. I don't want to get too like super technical about it. This will get very nerdy very fast. But basically it says that like the reason that quantum science is so weird is because the fundamental fabric of the universe doesn't exist in a true state unless it's observed, unless it's
Correct. And it's literally that thing is about whether something can be a wave or particle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you literally have to observe it. So it can be, if you compare it to music for a second, it's like either a wave, something you can hear, or it's physical matter that you can touch. And it's literally the act of observing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, tell me about the link to biocentrism. Is it that I think
it's that biological life and biological consciousness is a part of the creation of the universe. It created the universe rather than the universe creating biological life. That's what.
Love it. And let me guess. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have to be a biological entity in order to make the observation itself. Does that make sense?
Yes, but it gets into some real deep, interesting stuff and different kind of types of consciousness and different time scales. That's something I've been fascinated with for a long time. Plant consciousness. If you do a stop motion of a jungle, it's very alive. We just don't notice the fight and struggle and all the same drama that goes on in the animal kingdom because we observe it at a different time scale.
Wow.
You know, if you speed up the tape, it's as vicious as the Sahara, the plains of the Sahara.
Oh yeah, totally. And I think you'll check out Dr. Bruce Lipton, The Biology of Belief, and it's a very simple. There's a link, right? And what it is if I remember it correctly from reading it, it was that basically you have to be a biological entity, be it anything that's living, right? That's biological, in order to observe the world, right? And I think it's kind of a link. So. All right, let's make a link to your music. Biocentrism, and we got onto about like viewing the things ahead. And is this like the way is this sort of part of the way you synchronize with your music and get into the flow? Tell me about it.
In a sense, I mean, in a very, very real and very specific sense, my songs don't exist until they're listened to, until they're played, So every time someone listens to a piece of music of mine, they're literally bringing it into existence. It only existed as a potential as in a potential state before that. And they're collapsing the wave form and turning it into a definite reality within their universe right then and there. That's a lot of power. I have a tremendous appreciation for that. That's someone has the whole universe to observe and they choose to listen to my music. That's something that honors me.
Oh man, I love this stuff. Now, as a speaker, I sort of relate to this in terms of, let me mention one thing. Like Richard Branson often goes by the philosophy of over-prepare. So over-prepare and then go with the flow. And the idea is that if you compare about, for example, practicing music and, giving it a go in advance, that's your preparation and your mind and your heart are visualizing the way it's going to flow and all that stuff. But then most importantly, in the moment, that's when the flow comes, and you can't prepare for that, but you've just got to embrace performing in the moment. And I find that as a speaker, when I'm on stage in front of an audience, it's like something comes through me, right? And that's something that just takes over, and that's flow. And that's one of the best feelings in the world, where I consider my speaking stuff as a performance. And tell me about that for you, because I mean, one thing I want to be specifically relating to is, you know, I've seen you on stage many times and you're just in that zone. And when I've looked at, for example, videos of you playing with Chris Cornell and you were doing Prince, Nothing Compares to You as a cover, and I look at your face and almost this kind of this vibe about you, and you're just completely in the moment. So what does that mean for you? How do you keep your cool in those moments? Or is it not even about keeping your cool? You're just in that flow. What is it?
I think it kind of all comes down to letting go. And I totally agree with Branson, who's a genius, by the way, in general, about preparation and then letting it all go and letting it just happen as it happens. That's how I approached practice with guitar and music and theory and stuff like that when I first started college. And I was fortunate to have that ideal instilled in me early on, the concept that what you want to ideally do is spend your practice time doing the analysis and doing the real minutia of it, so that when it comes time for performance and composition and things like that, you then just open up, let it go, and let all of that hard work just flow through you, along with whatever else gets picked up along the way, And for me, although you can't practice exactly what you do in those moments, because that kind of defeats the purpose, you can, by doing that frequently and putting yourself in that position frequently, have practice being able to go like, oh, I'm going to be on stage in 1 second, no problem, here we go. If I had only done that a few times, I would be much more nervous about it. But I've done it so many times. I've been up on stage so much that I feel very comfortable. And the more I do it, that's me practicing something. It's me practicing confronting that situation.
That's a good point, isn't it? For both performers and also budding performers out there, whether say, for example, someone's listening to this and they've got a fear of public speaking. Right. The thing I could only ever encourage someone to do is to get on stage and perform more, because what I'm hearing, right, is that you've actually got sort of three elements. You've got the practice in private, which is so important, so that you genuinely just know what's ahead of you. You've got the act of getting on stage, and that is a form of practice in itself, because you're just comfortable with the environment. And then most importantly, you've got the flow. So you do those two things, that becomes the given, and that's why you're so good at it naturally. But then the flow is the bit that really sets you apart from everyone else. It's that letting go.
Yeah, it's that letting go. And it's difficult. It's difficult for us not to get caught up in spiral thinking and, obsessive thinking and stuff like that. It's hard. It's hard to avoid.
Do you know one of the lyrics I loved? I was listening to 1, 2, 3 Go in the car just before the interview now, and I heard your lyric, I love circular thinking. Is it because it keeps my mind well-rounded?
It keeps my mind well-rounded. Yes, that's great. Yes. Yeah.
Genius lyric. I love that.
Thank you.
Okay. So, so if I was to ask you, how do you keep you cool in performing? Is it the combination of those three things we just said?
It is a combination of those things, because at any one of those stages, you could negatively impact the overall situation. You could sabotage the situation in any one of those parts. You know what I mean? Because if you can be as prepared as you want and as experienced as you can be, but if you won't just let go and do it and let it happen, then there's no amount of preparation you can do to get you.
And there's as a performer, there's almost like this, if you let yourself get into your head too much and become nervous and stop breathing and stop letting go, there's almost like this death chasm you can go into, and you start going in there and you're overthinking about stuff. And then all of a sudden you realize that you've got the audience in front of you still, and they want something in that moment and they don't know what on earth's going on for you. So you've just got to be there and give. You've got to give continuously and not worry about yourself and focus on what you're giving. Right.
Yeah, of course. And also, what do you like as an audience member? What makes you feel comfortable when you're in the audience and watching somebody. That's, to me, it's like what I hope to do is make my audience feel comfortable. And I do that by leading by example. I feel comfortable on stage. And so I want everyone to know they can trust me. Nothing crazy is going to happen. I'm not going to blow it. You know what I mean? Like, this is going to be totally fine. Like, no matter what, it'll be great.
Exactly. And that's what people want. It's authenticity, isn't it? It's craving authenticity, the real deal. That's what people connect with. Okay. Let's talk about the greats for a second. So let's imagine you're back, you're playing with Snoop Dogg, with Cross Canal. As a musician, what do you feel binds all musicians together?
What is it that, music, the instrumental side, just the notes and rhythms and stuff like that, most primal side of music is a language, a very in-depth language that nobody actually completely speaks fluently. The language understands itself way better than any person can ever understand it. So you have to be a vessel to some extent or another. And that experience, I think, is one of the things that really, really connects us all as musicians. We all deal in this language that we speak, we understand, but we don't really understand, and we speak, but we don't really speak, and it's, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of trust there that has to be kind of given.
Ooh, you gave me goosebumps saying that, because I know that, right? I've had the experience of playing with many, many other musicians. Like, I play guitar and sing myself, and I know that in those moments where you connect musically and you're speaking the same lingo, that's a connection point between you that gives you goosebumps, doesn't it? And that's the beauty.
Oh yeah, man. Full on telepathy is possible through music, straight up. Like, it's just, I can communicate from one person to another with just using my, expressing my thoughts in one way, or, you know what I mean? Without using words, without writing it down, without even.
I 100% agree with that, because I've experienced it as a musician myself. Do you think there's I know this to be true, but I want to hear it from you. Do you think there's a transcendent quality about music specifically?
Oh, for sure. I think I'm extremely fortunate to have devoted my life to music, because I am able to reap some of the same benefits as a person who's devoted their life to meditation. Like almost like a monk. I spent many years of my life practicing, 6, 8, 10 hours a day and stuff like that, and just really super devoted to the craft. And I've had those moments of complete transcendence, almost like, what they describe the runner's high. I've had the player's high so many times, and there's a definite transcendent space, and it helps me to go almost immediately into a deep meditative state. And all I have to do is pick up an instrument, and it doesn't matter what it is, and it doesn't matter where, and it's great. Music is so valuable. I really, it's one of those things that since it's not an actual, technically a life necessity, even though a lot of people treat it like it is, it's something that's so important. It's so important to the development of your brain and your heart and soul, and the way you communicate and understand yourself and the universe, I think.
Absolutely right. And transcendence, when you have that in a group setting, right? Yeah. Have there been times, I'm sure the answer is many, but have there been times where you feel in that state that you are completely connected with the audience, and the audience themselves all feel connected with one another?
Totally. Absolutely. I've had moments where I know that everyone just got the chills at the same time. It's it's a really intimate experience. That's what I want it to be, because the potential is there. Music is great because it serves so many different purposes. You can have music as just for fun and just for going nuts and all that kind of stuff. The music that I tend to make is more personal and vulnerable, and so my goal with any of my performance experiences is for us all to have a transcendent experience, and to come away with from it feeling like there was a before that happened and an after that happened, and it can happen every time, but all the pieces have to come together in a certain way.
Think about the the Trinity. You heard of the Trinity of like mind, body, spirit, right?
Sure.
I was reflecting on that this morning when I was going for a run on the beach, and I was reflecting on the fact that I need to get into my body through exercise, for example, in order to get out of my head. And I would use that analogy and also apply it to something like even yoga. So like, I think it's the same, right? If you go and do yoga, you're breathing and exercising in a certain way where you get out of your head, you connect into your body, and you connect into your spirit, into your heart, right? And as you were talking then, I kind of made a connection where I see music as exactly the same as those kinds of rituals, those personal rituals where you by exercising, by getting on the yoga mat, by meditating, by picking up a guitar, or even being part of the audience and and connecting with it. It's the personal ritual that gets you out of your head and into your body and into your heart. And that's what we all crave so much. We want connection. We want to feel part of something. We want to feel part of one with each other. And I think that's what it is, isn't it?
I think so too. Yeah. I think we need to find that balance. I certainly tend to spend a lot of time in my head, and I'm finding a lot of signs in my life lately kind of pointing me toward more of a heart focus. And I think it's important. It's an important thing to find that balance there. One can kind of be the salvation from the other, and they're both equally important, I think. When you get too much in your head, absolutely, connecting to that which gives you life, which is the heart that pumps, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The consciousness, the mind, is not necessarily as, finite. It's not subject to time in the same way as our body seems to be. Our body seems like it's on the time arrow, but our consciousness could be eternal. And so our heart is the physical now, and if you're future tripping or past tripping or present tripping, then getting into some heart will help balance you out. And the same can be true otherwise. When you get too connected to what's going on here in this physical world, in this physical reality, then sometimes your head and higher can kind of shed some light on what the universe really looks like.
Oh yeah, I love this stuff, man. And that's absolutely right. There's an intelligence to the heart, right? And you got to connect with it so you can allow that to flow through you. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is going deep, nice and deep, nice and meaningful. I love it. Okay, I want to talk about family and your upbringing. Okay, so like your father, Jimmy Simons, he was the producer of Malcolm in the Middle and also The New Adventures of Superman. I mean, that's cool. I love both of those shows, like amazing. And then your mother, Eliza Roberts, she actually remarried, and she remarried to the brother of Julia Roberts, right? So you've got your father doing these awesome shows. Your mother is an actress, and she was also she was on the National Lampoon, wasn't she?
She was in Animal House. And she did a bunch of John Landis's stuff. My mom was in John Landis's first film, which was called Schlock, when she was just a teenager.
Wow.
But it was amazing. The people who were involved in that film, Rick Baker did the makeup for that movie. He went on to do like Jurassic Park and all.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
And all kinds of stuff.
So I mean, okay, so that's like incredible. To have these kinds of awesome parents, first of all, and they're around you, and all this connections with Hollywood. What was it like growing up amongst show business, and what did it teach you about life?
I think it helped me to break down the kind of facade of fame and celebrity and all that kind of stuff, which I'm so happy to have had the experience doing, because I think a lot of the recent self-indulgent social media stuff, the selfie culture, is kind of an attempt to experience this thing of celebrity, which is this tantalizing, dangling carrot that's always just out of reach. And I can tell you that even the most accomplished, most successful people, a great many of them still experience it experience success as something that's just out of their reach, no matter where they are. It's something you have to really choose within, and you can be there whenever you feel that you are there,
Yeah.
But I'm glad that I had that experience. And, it started in my family even before my parents, with my grandparents. My grandma, Lila Garrett, was a producer, writer, director for a bunch of television stuff, from Get Smart and Bewitched to like All in the Family, Give Me a Break, all these sitcoms. And my grandpa, who just recently passed away, he was a publicist. He was a publicist for the Jackson 5 and like the Flintstones and the
No way.
Jetsons and
Awesome.
stuff.
Okay.
And then my other grandpa was a screenwriter, and he wrote a lot of amazing movies. He wrote The Way We Were and Out of Africa and some really cool stuff. And he wrote an amazing jazz movie called Round Midnight that starred Dexter Gordon, Herbie Hancock, and all the greats. And it was like, as a young musician growing up and having that be my grandpa and be able to kind of talk to him about that stuff and for me to see his enthusiasm about my enthusiasm for jazz, was super cool.
Wow, that's awesome. And the thing is, because I'm also a fellow creative, I get how vibrant it is to be amongst other creatives, right? Yeah. So to have everything you just described around you, must be so stimulating and invigorating, to bringing the emergence that was this, this person that is you now, the artist, Keaton Simons, right? It must have really nourished you. Would you agree with that?
I agree completely. I'm so fortunate because I got, I was around so many creative, artistic people that they naturally supported it. A lot of people don't. A lot of artists who have struggled go, I don't want my kids to be anywhere near this business, and I don't blame them. But in my family, it was not that way. I was just encouraged creatively and always felt free to express myself creative.
That's cool. I mean, there's a healthy balance there, isn't there? Because I think when we talk about the idea of celebrity, have you heard of there's a word, archetypes, right? We have archetypes,
of course,
right? And an archetype, for people that don't know, it's a representation of the ideal, right? So you've got all sorts of ideal that we want to be, and celebrity represents either the ideal man, the ideal woman, the ideal artist, the ideal jester and comedian, combined with this idea of success, right? So it's the magazine front cover of the things that we all want to be more in life, and they personify that in both their work and who they are and how they're presented, right?
That's part of the thing about celebrity. It all gets into our struggle with our own mortality, really. It's this illusion of immortality, and that you're kind of living on beyond yourself. Other people are thinking about you, and your image and self will live on beyond you. But it's just an illusion, and it's not all it's cracked up to be. There's some really good things about it. You know what I mean? Like getting free stuff and having people treat you nicely, and VIP stuff is cool. But it really is a slippery slope. And once you get past a certain threshold, it's like every single person who's ever gotten there goes, damn, this is what they were all saying when they said, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Because the illusion of it, it's almost better to maintain it as a fantasy than to demystify it and make it a reality. If you want the feeling that the fantasy is going to give you, you can't get that with the reality of the situation. You can only get that with the fantasy. So as soon as you break down the fantasy, you no longer have that. And that realization in and of itself can be really devastating for people. A lot of people who are tremendously successful become deeply depressed. And part of that is because they finally got to this place where they thought they wanted to be forever, and everything's exactly the same, and they still just have themselves and have to face themselves and figure out what's going on.
What are the darker sides of celebrity that you've witnessed, having grown up in it, and you choose to stay away from as a result? What are the kind of the warning signs? What are the no-go areas that you're like, you know what, I've seen this, I don't want to go there, I'm going to stay away from it?
Yeah, for me, it's the extreme egocentrism and the kind of lack of consideration of other people past a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the inherent problem with all of it is greed. I think that it becomes a greed cycle. It's just trying to get more. And that's once you enter that zone, you have set yourself on such a horrible imbalance with the rest of the world that
Mm-hmm.
it becomes very difficult to relate and to even kind of, really find and understand your place outside of your own illusion, ego-based illusion.
That's it. And you see, like, look, there are so many celebrities that also focus on giving back to the world, right? And I
Yes.
think there's a bit of a distinction there between, for anyone, doesn't matter whether you're a celebrity or not, if you focus solely on the me, the ego, the successful of just the individual that is me, then at a certain point, you're going to get to a limit or a ceiling, and you're going to go, well, what is, or you're going to get frustrated and depressed, etc. But when you focus on giving, then that is something that brings fulfillment as well. So it's possible to do both. It's great to have personal success, but along the way, if you can have a mission of giving back, then I think that's fabulous, really. And that's what,
For sure.
yeah.
But
Tony Robbins put it really well. He talked about the science of success versus the art of fulfillment, right? So science of success versus art of fulfillment. And if you can have both, then there you go. That's how you remain grounded.
Absolutely. Yeah. Success is such a relative thing, it's something that you can keep just out of reach for yourself forever. It's up to you, and yeah. No, I think giving back and turning to kind of, being a contributor can really help to offset that whole thing. But we must all remember that at the end of the day, at the end of it all, we just have ourselves, and all the stuff that you did and the ways that other people envisioned you and thought of you and revered you and loved you and idolized you and stuff don't mean anything. It's all the same, and so there are other things that might end up being more fulfilling and might end up creating a more rewarding, successful sense of existence.
Exactly. And because you've got the externalization of success, right? And that might be what the magazine is saying, what the newsreel is saying, what your ratings externally are saying, whatever it is. If you externalize too much, then you're reliant on giving your power away. Personal power is about connecting within what it means to be successful, pursuing goals that mean something to you personally. And if you can keep that in alignment, then it doesn't matter whether you're a celebrity, a musician, a business person, an individual. It's about knowing within oneself that I'm doing something that means something to me. And maybe if it's not all just about me and I'm focusing on other people too along the way, then hey, that's what happiness is, pretty much.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's such a great perspective. And I've always felt a real connection with you based on that point of view and those concepts, because they elude so many people. And, for myself, I do have a natural optimism, but I also have a natural depressive nature and a natural pessimistic nature, sometimes super cynical nature. And my optimism isn't something that's forced. It's something that is that I decide to put energy toward that in order to enhance the amount of positivity and optimism within my life. Because to me, negativity is kind of on autopilot. You encounter it no matter what. And a lot of people kind of take that as I'll take it from here and just continue down this negative slope, But if you're going to put energy toward breaking that cycle, you realize that all you're doing when you're being negative is the same thing you're doing when you're being positive. But being positive is much, much better because things work out. You get happy and stuff like that. And so that's why it happens for me. And it's not because a lot of people ask me, like, how are you so positive and like that all the time? And I'm like, because I practice it a ton. It's not fake. I do it. It's all real. It's for a very specific reason. I choose to see the positive around me. I'm not making it up. I'm not creating it where it isn't there. I'm choosing to see things in a positive light.
Exactly. In my, I've got a course that I teach about happiness, and I break it down into 4 pillars of self-care. So you must put yourself in a place where you're looking after yourself.
Yes.
Relationships, and that's authentic relationships that actually mean something, right? It's not the falsity of celebrity in certain spheres, right? And because, but yeah, the genuineness of relationships, that meaningful connection, right? Not being lonely, having people in your life. And then there's the pursuits, like, are you doing it just for yourself? Are you doing it for the people around you as well? Is it something that's in alignment? So we've got self-care, relationships, pursuits, and then finally, perspectives. And it's being philosophical and, being able to reflect on it and go, hey, actually, maybe I can look at this situation this way and take something out of it.
Exactly.
My
man.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. Okay, now let's talk about tech. So you've been in this game long enough to have seen the shift, right? I remember when Napster came out for the first time, never mind Spotify, right? With the people expect to be able to see your video on YouTube because that's just the way it is. I want to see it there. I want to see it on Spotify because that's what I use, and it's all kind of just a shifting, emerging landscape of new ways of consuming music. And, initially the whole industry was absolutely horrified with it. But what about you? What about you as an individual artist? How have you adapted in order to basically share your message with your fans in the most authentic way to yourself as well?
Well, for me, it's all about going with the flow, all about breaking it down to its bare essentials. For me, I just want to bring myself through my music and my music through myself to people. It doesn't matter to me how it gets to them. I'm not connected to any idea of how it should be. I'm not connected to any fantasy of what it's supposed to be like to be a musician and a successful musician, or the old concept of what that was, the private jets and so on and so forth. Like those days are gone, at least right now. That's fine with me. I make music for completely unconnected reasons from that, but I want to bring my music to people, and so I just figure out the best, most real way to do that. And if it's through online, connecting online, that's great. I prefer to be in person. I like to come with people. I've in the last several years, myself and a lot of my fellow singer songwriters have done a lot of house concerts and private concerts, and to me, you're able to have a more curated experience. People know what they're there for. You're not going to have a table full of drunk people ruining the show for everyone else who's there. It's another better way to connect the audience with the performer. And that's all we want. People just want music, and I just want to give it to them. So we figure out how to do that, or whatever, however I need to do it, I'll do it.
Hey man, you must be a Buddhist because attachment is suffering, right? If you just
without a doubt,
just go with it, but stay current, right? And without a doubt, you're current. And what are some of the platforms you do?
For sure. Well, there are so many. Listen, here's the thing: the way that the landscape has changed. There was this initial period where it was just like run for your lives. The sky is falling, and then it kind of settled into this zone where a bunch of power kind of fell into the hands of the artists, and it's just like, all right, come up with some creative stuff, and here are several platforms for you to put that out there. And if you are clever and strategic and organized and talented and smart, and know how to work it and a little lucky, then you can rock that stuff. You know what I mean? And people, I have some really good friends who have blown up from YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. Even MySpace. MySpace was like one of my first big ones. I got a bunch of fans on MySpace, and people would come out to shows whenever I posted on there, and it was it was a thing. But the whole social media thing, is a great platform when it's used correctly. You know, it's just like anything, it gets oversaturated. You know, it's a cycle. It's just like, you know, the neighborhood, the bad neighborhood. It's affordable for the artists. The artists make it cool. Now all the rich people want to move in. Now it's lame. The artists need to find another place. They can't afford it anymore. You know what I mean? And then the cycle continues, and it's the same thing.
That's such an awesome, broader perspective on it, and I love that. That's cool. That's cool.
Thanks, man.
But
listen, there are fights to be fought. You know, there are fights worth being fought, like trying to increase the royalty rates for Spotify and stuff like that. The payout for musicians is just, it's crazy how low it is. It's criminal, just because there are people who are super greedy, who are making an insanely imbalanced amount of money compared to how much the artists are making, and the artists are the ones that are supplying the content, you know? So at least a more balanced layout, I think, would be better and would go a long way.
Cool.
You know?
Totally, of course. So let's move on to some challenges. What has been the biggest challenge of your musical career? What was it, and how did you overcome it?
I think the biggest challenge is dealing with finding my own personal sense of success and not allowing it to be measured or reflected against, compared with external things. You know, I need to just, like, I always have known why I make music, and it's always just because I love to make music. It's a deep connection to the foundation of the universe and myself and whatever goes beyond that. And that's why I do it. And so it can be a real struggle for me when I have to deal with the business side of it, and, you know, have people who are not creative come in and try to assert creative input or control over something. It can be very, very frustrating. You know, that's been something that's been a challenge. And, you know, also just, it's a tough one. It's a tough roller coaster ride. I've been super close to that kind of success, the more kind of typical, what we think of as a successful music career, so many times. They've even written about it in the LA Times a couple of times. That it's like a joke now at this point. You know what I mean? I've been on the edge for so long that it's just like, well, I mean, there may as well not be an edge. Like, I'm just up here, and here I am, you know?
Yeah, totally.
But that's totally okay. And the more I live and the more I experience through my life and stuff I go through and everything, the less I care about any of that kind of stuff. I just don't, like, it seems like sometimes I actually feel grateful that I haven't kind of blown up in certain ways where I've seen, you know, other people, or just the way that I can imagine it could have happened for me, and where my head could have been at as a result of that at that time, you know. But you know, the truth is I don't actually do that. I don't really compare against hypothetical realities. I just kind of examine what is. But it's helped me to accept, you know. The struggle has helped me to let go and help me to accept and help me to just be okay, just to be, and be happy to be, like my friend Paul Faust says. Happy to be.
That's it, man. That's it. And that comes back down to your own happiness, but also I think there's a magnetism to authenticity again that helps you connect with your audience, so that they know you're the real deal.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's the thing. I guess, yeah, working hard, paying your dues and all that kind of stuff, it definitely builds character. I have certainly felt like I've had to build enough character, and I'm ready to cash in on the old character crop planting. I'm ready to get some what I've been building all that character for.
You've been working out.
But also, again, you know, like you said, the most important pillar, possibly, the perspective, you know, that is where all the power lies. That's because no matter what is going on, you always have that within your range of choice. And because that's the thing, we always have choice, but our choices can be severely limited. We don't necessarily have a choice of what our options are. We just have a choice between whatever the options may be. But we always have the choice to manipulate our own point of view and to make it work for us as best we can.
That's it, man. And there's a thing in personal development, there's a phrase that's quite common that is the event is neutral. So the event is neutral, and how you choose to respond, react, the meaning you make of it is up to you. And it's tough sometimes because those things can, you really feel them in those moments and it sucks. But ultimately the power's with yourself.
Exactly. And you got to just let it go, move on, make sure it's processed so it doesn't come popping up, when you don't want it to. But yeah, holding on to that stuff and being attached to it just won't get you anywhere.
What do you think about growth within that? Because when you talk about everything you just said, I guess there are ways in which one can continue growing regardless of whatever's going on around you.
Absolutely.
And I feel like growth is, I like to compare it to a pond. So imagine if there's a pond that's got weeds in it and it's all getting gooey and slimy, and because there's no water moving through it, it's stagnating and it starts to stink, right? Whereas a flowing river, something that is growing, is fresh, right? So, I guess that's, tell me about that a bit for you. So what are some of the areas of personal growth that you've experienced through the years as you've, maybe kind of come to these precipice points where it's like, okay, I'm about to break through, but whatever, tell me about some of the other areas that you continued growing in as a result.
I think it's helped me to just grow in terms of my connection and comfort with myself, and also with letting go of myself. Ultimately it becomes, who are we, what are we, and kind of coming to terms with that and finding a comfortable place within that just to be. And to me, having these external, physical, material, so to speak, goals and just goals have helped me to realize how unimportant some of those things are. And so I've been able to grow tremendously in the areas that are important to me, which is just increasing love in my heart and in my life and in the lives of the people around me. Just being present, learning, and just not giving up, just keep going for it,
And you know what? There's not even when you say not giving up, it's about, let me inject a little word there that I know you already, because I know you well, right? It's not even about not giving up. It's about re-anchoring. So let's come back to going for the run, picking up your guitar, meditating, getting on the yoga mat. We re-anchor through the personal ritual that is the thing we love and allows us to connect with our heart. And I think for you, my friend, it's picking up that guitar and singing.
For sure. It is, for sure. You're absolutely right, man. That's been a huge saving grace for me. I think that's a big reason why I'm such an advocate for music education and music therapy and so on. It just does something that is more than we can do with anything else. And it's easy. Just turn it on and heal.
Ooh, I like it. Okay. Now, to round off, you got your most recent EP, 1, 2, 3, Go. Now that you've fulfilled that dream of doing a destination record and expressing yourself there, what's next? What's next on the horizon for you?
That's a good question. Well, I'm doing a lot of touring. I've been doing some to promote the record, and it's been really fun. I've gotten to do some great shows and some killer stuff. I have some super fun stuff coming up that I will only mention because it's so cool. But I will be accompanying my dear friend Kelly McGrath at the British Summertime Festival at Hyde Park, opening for Eric Clapton, Carlos Santana, Steve Winwood, Chaz and Dave, Gary Clark Jr., Lucas Nelson. But I think there's only about 10 to 12 acts total on the bill. Wow. And it's already like 100,000 tickets sold out. It's just crazy. I can't believe it. I'm so thrilled about that. So, but I'm going to do more touring as much as I can, but the right kind of touring, get out to my peoples. And then I'm always writing and coming up with new stuff. I'm already getting to where I'm starting to think about kind of what I want to do for the next record.
Where can people find your work? Where's the best one place to direct people towards?
Well, the best place to find my music is on iTunes. That's
Okay.
where you can purchase my music probably most easily. But I'm also on Apple Music, on Spotify, on all of the streaming sites, as well as my website, keatonsimons.com, which can link you to absolutely everything. Maybe that's the best place to send people. I think you can get to all of my socials, my Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, etc., from my website, keatonsimons.com, keatonsimons.com.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Keaton,
Yeah,
look, it really has been such a pleasure today. And I just want
same
to
here.
acknowledge the realness of this conversation. It's grounded, it's got humility, it's got aspiration, it's got ambition, it's got all of the realness that I think so refreshing. And I love all the connections you're making to theories of the universe and what it means to be an artist and get into flow and know yourself so that you can give more to the world. So, just want to acknowledge everything that we've talked about. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today. It really has been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. I love this. I love that you're doing it. I've loved this conversation. And this is what I think about all day long.
Cool, man. Awesome. We'll speak again soon.
Mwah. Love you, man.
Love you too.